Service design, which puts customers first when rearranging and utilizing space. We look into successful examples of service design, which paves the way for service innovation. Most recently, the National Assembly passed a bill which forms a revised supplementary budget, and at the same time, Bank of Korea has slashed interest rates. Will the Korean economy experience revival as the two economic measures are implemented? IT technology is being used among training athletes and joggers who run around local parks. We find out about how sports meets IT technology. The improvement in home network systems through network service. We find out about the secret behind the business success of home network system maker Commax. North Korea has set new goals to improve its economy as it gains confidence in nuclear development. Will North Korea succeed in having both ways in terms of nuclear capability and economic advancement?
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon and welcome to Bizline. As you can see, it is a gorgeous day here in central Seoul, but there are dark clouds on the economic horizon. Low growth and a depreciating yen are casting a long shadow over the South Korean economy in 2013. In our interview segment, we'll be discussing the latest booster measures with an economics expert and asking whether South Korea needs to institute Parkonomics as a response to Japan's Abenomics. But before that, let's take a look at the latest breaking business and economic news from here in South Korea this week.
Half of Korea's small and medium-sized exporters have seen their sales drop, and they're blaming the strengthening local currency. 60% of the SMEs have said the strong Korean won has dealt a heavy blow to their exports, that they are suffering from losses because of falling sales. Loans given out by Korean banks to troubled industries have topped $73 billion. The high number has raised fears over the possibility of a chain of defaults caused by the sluggish economy. According to the Bank of Korea, as of the end of last year, 16 local banks lent money to troubled industries, which include construction, shipbuilding, and shipping. Still weighing down on the Korean economy is household debt, which spiked to nearly $987 billion last year. That means the nation's total household debt was nearly as much as its GDP, which came to about $1.1 trillion in 2012. Moreover, the Bank of Korea said Wednesday that the amount of household debt has doubled in the past 10 years. It has been 12 years after opening the doors of Korea's Incheon International Airport. The airport has a reputation for being one of the finest in the world and has celebrated a milestone of having 50 million transfer passengers pass through. The airport says the number of transfers has been growing by an average 12.8% annually, a mere 2.5 million. After days of negotiations, Korea and Russia reached a deal that places a quota on Korean fishing boats in Russian waters. Korean fishermen will be permitted to catch nearly the same amount of cod, squid, and mackerel pike this year as they did last year. If Korea's fisheries ministries takes measures to prevent the illegal catching of crabs, Russia says it will increase the pollock limit by 15,000 tons to 40,000.
It would be an understatement to say that design is central to life in modern urban economies. From the clothes we wear, to the cars we drive, to the buildings we live and work in, design is becoming as important as function. And it's no longer just about the hardware. We're now hearing the term service design. Service design refers to the efficient arrangement of space for the convenience of customers in administrative processes. Now, if that sounds like a mouthful to you, it sounds like a mouthful to me too. What's it all about? Let's take a look.
A long wait to see the doctor for less than a 5-minute consultation was deemed normal in South Korea. Before, the country's economy was in the developing stage and people's needs were overlooked in order to fulfill their basic necessities. But development of South Korea's economy brought on demands, which means to listen to what people's needs are. They are no longer satisfied with just fulfilling their wants, but are growing to focus on their needs. The service industry has grown to take a bigger portion in the economy, while competition in business is getting tougher in times of sluggish global economy. Thus, businesses in the service sector are turning to designing services to increase their profitability while attending to the user's needs. They are taking a step further from marketing or management discipline. This general hospital on the outskirts of northern Seoul did just that. After interviewing clients and doctors, the hospital went through a change in the doctor's consultation room to accommodate their outpatients by shortening waiting time while improving interaction with doctors. As a result, the three parties of interest, patients, doctors and the management, found themselves happy with the new system created in the room.
진료실을 바꿈으로써 환자들이 만족도가 높아지고 또 우리 의사들도 아주 편리하고 환자를 아주 쾌적한 환경에서 볼 수 있어서 아주 환자, 의사 모두 다 만족스러운 상황입니다.
The change was simple, connecting two rooms so that the doctor can save time in attending to their patients. Patients didn't have to wait in the lounge and they had more chance to engage in conversation with the medical staff.
보통 1시간 정도 예상을 하고서 병원에 오는데요. 지금 제가 진료받는데 10분밖에 안 걸렸거든요. 의사 선생님하고도 얘기하는 시간이 좀 더 길어져서 오히려 제가 어디가 아픈지 어떻게 더 치료를 할 것인지에 대해서 잘 설명해 주신 것 같아서 좋았습니다.
As for the management and in the business aspect, the innovative approach improved its image while enhancing the hospital's profitability.
환자 중심으로 케어 서비스 디자인을 만들고 나서 환자들의 만족도도 높아졌고 의사들의 능률도 높아졌을 뿐만이 아니라 이거에 따라서 환자를 진료를 보는 시간과 대기 시간이 줄었기 때문에 환자를 보는 진료 수입도 상당히 높아져서 경제적인 효과도 보고 있습니다.
Service design applied at the Myeongji Hospital shows that businesses can increase their efficiency and profitability without having to sacrifice the user's needs. Rather, the innovative approach enhanced quality of the service. With positive feedbacks, the hospital continued with its service design projects at the Cancer Center and the Comprehensive Medical Checkup Center so that the users could feel that they are being cared for with sincerity as well as improving the hospital's efficiency.
고객의 경험을 가치를 극대화시켜 주면서 새로운 서비스를 창출하는 건데요. 참 행동이라든지 심리라든지 이런 마음속 깊이 있는 니즈를 도출시켜야 되고요. 이것을 구현하는데 이해관계자분들이 계시잖아요. 근데 이 이해관계자분들이 각각 다른 요구사항을 갖고 계시거든요. 이런 다른 요구사항들을 잘 연결시켜서 혁신적인 새로운 상품이나 서비스를 만들어내는 일이에요.
Such examples of creating a new service or product can be found at this bank through convergence of two institutions with different functions.
서비스 센터 와서 이렇게 은행에 같이 있는 건 한 번도 보지 못했는데 여기 와서 보니까 되게 효율적으로 잘 공간을 이용한 것 같고 한 번에 또 두 가지 업무를 볼 수 있어서 다른 은행보다는 조금 더 이쪽을 많이 찾게 되는 것 같아서 좋은 점이 많은 것 같아요.
Providing services and creating the so-called smart branch where it wasn't thought of before took some creativity.
KT 플라자의 서비스도 즐기실 수 있고 IBK 서비스도 즐기실 수 있도록 하는데 신경을 많이 썼고요. IBK 은행의 아이덴티티는 유지하지만 이렇게 융합되는 결과물에 더 신경을 많이 썼습니다.
Converging the functions of two and utilizing their functions resulted in more positive feedbacks.
전에는 이렇게 사람이 많으면 되게 짜증나고 시간도 되게 아깝고 그랬는데 지금 보니까 이렇게 아이패드로 뭐 이렇게 정보 검색 아니면 뭐 본인이 좋아하는 뭐 그런 게임도 할 수 있고 그래서 되게 좋은 것 같아요.
Service design, implementing innovative and creative ideas, yet efficient and satisfying the user's needs. However, service design isn't applicable only in the private sector. It could be used in the public area, such as changing the environment to reduce crime and form interactive community. Service design here aims for crime prevention through environmental design. A neighborhood in central Seoul added fresh coat of colorful paints and streets were laid with flowers. Exercise equipment was installed in public areas to bring out people from their homes and increase participation in a district known to have a high rate of crime.
소금길이 바뀌면서 저희 동네에 불량 학생들도 없어지고 군데군데 불이 환하다 보니까 많이 편해지고 주민분들이 그 불량 학생들이 있던 자리에서 저녁에 만나서 음료수도 마시고 커피도 마시고 많이 좋아지셨습니다.
Seoul City's recent action not only improved people's attitude, but also economically speaking.
네, 우리나라에서 범죄로 인한 발생하는 사회적 비용은 거의 수조 원에 달하고 있습니다. 이러한 엄청난 비용을 이 범죄 예방 디자인을 통해서 많은 부분이 절감될 수 있으리라고 생각이 들고요. 소금길 범죄 예방 효과는 77.6%가 나타났고요. 만족도는 83.3%로 나타나는 놀라운 수치를 가져왔습니다.
Streetlights were improved so that people felt less afraid at night, and neighbors volunteered to provide their homes as a safe place in case people needed to seek help for any crime.
서비스 디자인이 이런 다양한 사회 문제를 해결할 수 있다는 것에 대해서는 사람들이 많이 놀라워하고 새로운 인식을 갖고 있습니다. 앞으로 서비스 디자인을 활용해서 많은 사회 문제 해결을 다양한 각도와 새로운 관점으로 접근할 수 있으리라고 생각합니다.
Tertiary industries in South Korea have much more room to grow to catch up to the level of advanced nations, and service design can be utilized to speed up that process.
서비스 디자인은 디자인 작업을 하는 과정도 각각의 다른 분야의 융합을 굉장히 요구하고 있고요. 결국 경제적인 어떤 경제성의 효율화 이런 것들도 가능하고요. 그런 것으로 인해서 더 창의적인 결과물도 나올 수 있을 것 같습니다.
And for services to grow in South Korea, the country should be thinking design, be creative, and find sustainable solutions that can fulfill users' needs and wants.
The Korean government has recently passed an administrative budget, an additional administrative budget worth over $15 billion. Meanwhile, in a separate move, the Bank of Korea has slashed interest rates for the first time in 7 months. Can these moves push the Korean economy out of the low-growth doldrums, or are there deeper structural problems that these kind of quick fixes cannot address? To answer these questions, we have with us a Professor of Economics at Sukmyung Women's University. Professor Shin Se-don, thank you once again for joining us on Bizline.
Nice to see you back.
Okay. Speaking broadly, please give us a dummies guide for our readers who are not familiar with this. What is an administrative budget, and how common a measure is it for Korean economic policymakers?
Well, we call it supplementary budget,
Okay.
which is that is a legal concept that, you know, when just something happens after the budget bill is passed by the parliament, the government initiates modification. We call it the supplementary budget. And for the last about 10 years, I think there are a number of, you know, the supplementary budgets. So it is not as rare as it sounds like. Usually about once in 2 years, something like that. So
Okay.
pretty usual one.
Now, I understand this is the second largest supplementary budget ever passed, after one in 2009,
Right.
which followed the global financial crisis.
Right.
Does this indicate there are significant economic problems right now?
Of course, the first thing that we have to mention is the regular budget 2013 was based upon the presumption that economic growth rate for that this year will be over 4%, which is
4%,
totally
yeah.
nonsense. So we have to readjust, you know, our entire revenue schedule for relatively low economic growth. That was one reason why this, you know, budget has been specified. And another point is the new government has many new plans that did not, you know, be dealt in the previous government. So like a creation economy or creative economy, and
yeah.
those kind of the welfare programs. So it requires, you know, kind of a basic modifications of the, you know, budget passed during the last government.
Is there a fear that Korea, which has got very low levels of government debt compared to Western countries,
Okay.
is now starting to move towards a spend policy, which could eventually lead to the kind of problems we're seeing in Europe, which is massive government debt?
Well, as you mentioned, the government debt or national debt of Korea is quite small compared to the Western country. So there's very little probability that Korea will be in trouble with the debt problem. That's one thing. And this kind of budget, supplementary budget, even though the size is about $15 billion, but relatively, it's pretty small in the sense that that's less than 2% of the entire budget, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that that will raise a serious trouble as far as national debt is concerned.
There was a presumption that Korean economic growth, when the original budget was passed, might be in the 4% range.
Right.
I think most of the estimates I see now are 2.3, 2.6, maybe 2.8 range at best. But nevertheless, the economy is still in growth mode. Do you think this additional budget is necessary?
Yes, as I said, the previous government assumed that growth rate would be 4%, and now the current economic growth rate at the current moment is way less than 3%. So we need to modify our revenue. That's one thing. So that's why about 2/3 of our supplementary budget is taking that into consideration. So 2/3 is to kind of raising money instead of taxes. We raise by issuing government bonds or something like that. So actually borrowing, right? So in that respect, I think the size is not as big as it sounds like, the second largest, and also the effect will be pretty limited because even though it is the second biggest, but there has been about some years between 2009 and 2013. So in real term, the size is way less than actually it sounds like.
Okay, fair comment. Where is, speaking very broadly, where is this money going to be allocated? What sectors of the economy will benefit?
Well, the first and the biggest, chunk of money will be poured into helping small and medium-sized enterprise, and also, the industry supporting programs, and also a substantial portion of the money will be spent upon the welfare programs. So altogether, I think about half of the new expenditure program will be centered upon the welfare, and health, welfare, and SME support.
Let's move on to another very, very big issue in the economy, the regional economy and the global economy, which is the falling value of the Japanese yen. Can the central banks move to slash the interest rate, act as some kind of indirect countermeasure against the weakening Japanese yen?
We cannot deny that an action by the Bank of Korea, which is a 1/4 percentage lowering of the interest rate, has something to do to counteract the effect upon Korean economy of the low exchange rate. But I don't think that was the main purpose. Main purpose of the fall in the bank rate of the Bank of Korea is to kind of stimulate domestic investment, and so I think I wanted to see that interest rate policy in a different angle as a way to counteract yen currency.
Okay. But speaking about the yen, this is a very, very big issue for Korea right now. There's a strong sense, particularly among newspaper editors at least, that Japan is implementing a beggar thy neighbor policy. And yet the G7 has supported Japan. I think investment fund managers, investment banks are quite pro the Japanese boosting their own economy, and it seems to be working now. Why is Korea so negative on Japan basically upgrading its competitiveness?
Because it's a long story, but because of the industrial structure between Korea and Japan, we have to fight in the third market for export market share with Japan so bad that small change in the yen movement will have a significant effect upon Korean exports, which is so important for our domestic economy. So I think, to me, the yen movement is the single most important factor for Korean economic growth as well as its export. So that's why we are so worried about the movement of the yen And fortunately, the yen has been, pretty strong for the last, a decade or more, right? But all of a sudden, it began to climb up, to depreciate it, and it's going to have a significant effect upon Korean economy as well as export. And the more important than that is, the lag effect of the yen rate. Usually, according to my research, well, that is different between the different industries, but generally it takes about 2 years for the full effect. Yeah, for the full effect to materialize in Korean economy. So that's one thing. You haven't seen anything yet about the strong, the weaker yen. And another point, that I have to make is that whether, when the yen will stop falling. Many people, argue that 100 yen per dollar was the maximum, but it was proven false, right?
True, yeah.
So it's already 103, right? And I'm sure that the rate will go up above 105 during this year, and possibly it will, when even over 110, and it is also possible it would reach 120 or 150 in 3-year period span. So, if you look back, the yen rate has been moving from 260 down to 120 in the 80s, and from 120 went up to 160 in the late 80s and early 90s. And then it went down to 79 in 1995. It came up to 140. So if you look at the previous history of the yen, the band of the movement of the yen has been 80 and very 120 wide. Something like that. So reflecting upon that, historical fact, I think I'm not surprised, if the yen will go above 120. It's not a strange thing at all. But many people were looking into the yen movement on a very microscopic.
Yes.
So they just couldn't see it, a longer term perspective. So in that respect, I think the Korean economy should be challenged by the yen.
True. I'm very interested in what you just said, which it may take a couple of years for this to be seen. And we haven't seen any changes in exporters' Q1 results. They're still pretty solid. People are saying there'll be a lag effect perhaps until Q3, Q4. You're saying it's going to take about 2 years for this.
Depending upon the industry.
Yeah.
Usually the light manufacturing industries have a shorter lag year around. Okay, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. Yeah. But heavy manufacturing industries such as automobiles and the machineries, those kind of industries take about between 6 and 9 quarters, for the full effect to materialize. So that's why I'm saying in general, but it's about 2 years.
So we're not going to see an effect on quarterly results really in this year for the big exporters?
The effect will be seen, to be beginning to be seen in the end of the year, and more serious effect will materialize probably during next year. So that's why I'm worrying more about 2014 than 2013.
Okay. Big question.
Yes.
Can we expect a won devaluation in the future?
Well, there are some people who favors relatively weaker won according to the movement of the yen, and there are a group of politicians and the scholars who favor stable won. They want to maintain the currency at the current level, which is about 1100.
Where do you fall?
I prefer, in terms of the growth and the job opportunities, I think the government has to act preemptively to counteract the effect of the yen coming.
You mean to intervene and lower the value of the won?
Right, accordingly. So we need to do that. But the people in the government as well as in the academia, there are many criticisms about that. First, the government should not intervene in the market. Generally, the capitalistic, philosophy. So I think that kind of, principle could apply to the big countries such as United States and European Union, but it doesn't apply to the small country like Korea. So the government has to have certain kind of room to manipulate or to stabilize the foreign exchange market, right? So in that respect, I think government has to do something, but the general consensus in this country Okay, we have to let the market go on their own way.
Now, I know you've been an advisor to the Park government in the past. I mean, do you sense that this is going to happen?
One depreciation? Very limited depreciation may
This year?
Yeah.
Okay.
But here, limited depreciation means when the yen depreciates by 10%, maybe a couple of percentage, corresponding depreciation of the Korean currency, that might be possible. But very active intervention in the exchange market to manipulate the exchange rate according to the movement of the yen, I think nobody will favor that kind of policy. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's come back then to the supplementary budget and the interest rate cut. These are top-down moves. Can they significantly change the fundamental problems facing the Korean economy now? And bar the yen depreciation, which we've just mentioned, what do you consider the key fundamental problems facing the economy this year?
Well, the growth, the government said with that, movement of the supplementary budget, they announced that the expected, effect upon the growth rate will be 0.1% this year, and another 0.2% is the effect caused by, recovering the tax revenues. I mean, substituting tax revenues within the government bonds.
This is raising extra
raising extra revenues through borrowing. That could avoid the falling of 0.2%. So total, the government is believing that 0.3% effect upon economic growth this year. That's a tremendously small amount. So I think slow economic growth will prevail this year, and as I said, because of the lag effect, next year will be also very stagnant. So in order to solve that kind of growth, if the government and the people really want to stimulate our economy, we need more drastic policies. Here, more drastic, I mean, we need to put more money. The government has to venture into more active plans, like something happened in 1930s, 1940s by the US government. So unless government activates that kind of a major demand-creating policy, I think Korea cannot, escape from a very slow economic growth. So, very pessimistic, and we have to do something very drastic, something like Japanese government is doing recently, which is called the Abenomics. So I think we need kind of a drastic and more active, with the economic growth policy, if really the government wants to get over this, slow economic growth.
Dr. Shin, thank you for delivering some very frank opinions and some very solid information. It's been a pleasure having you on Bizline once again. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye. Exercise is something we should all be getting more of, or so the doctors tell us. What's the point of going for, say, a 10-mile run if you then drop dead from a heart attack of overexertion? Given that we can't expect our personal physician to join us every time we hit the track or go to the gym, how can we monitor the effect of exercise on our body systems? Moreover, if we're professional athletes, how can we monitor the efficiency of our physical performance? A range of new technologies just now coming online may hold the answers.
Now we are living in the world where information and communication technology is fully integrated into our everyday life. As a result, ICT has made our daily activities more convenient. But did you know that ICT has also been applied to health and fitness management, as well as to enhance professional athletes' performance? Speed is at the center of any sports match, determining the outcome. Speed measuring technology has been applied in a wide range of areas, including sport, but it is not easy to access absolute velocity with accuracy. An important asset that a badminton player must have is an accurate and fast smash skill. Therefore, a smash speed measuring machine is a must-have gear during training. As speed is calculated by dividing the distance by the time, a shuttlecock must pass perpendicularly through speed sensors for accurate speed reading. But that almost never happens. Thus, the Korea Institute of Sports Science adopted a new technique to improve accuracy of the shuttle's speed measurement.
기본적으로 이제 양쪽에 두 개 설치되어 있는 레이저 센서 사이로 물체가 지나가게 되면 이 틀에서는 그 물체가 지나가는 기본 속도를 저희가 측정합니다. 카메라를 사용해서 물체가 지나가는 옆모습을 딱 한 장을 찍게 되는데 지금 보통 한 11만 분의 1초 정도로 한 장면을 찍습니다.
In other words, with a high-speed camera that records at a speed of 110,000 frames per second, it is possible to find out which direction a shuttlecock flies to. Through this technology, the shuttle's speed can be calculated to match the real one.
이 상태에서 저희가 셔틀콕이 지나가는 방향을 이런 식으로 입력을 해주면 수직이라고 가정한 속도에서 저희가 이제 보정된 속도를 실제 측정을 할 수 있는 거죠. 이 가기에 따라서 실제 보정하는 속도가 상당히 좀 차이가 있습니다. 그래서 정확하게 속도를 측정할 때는 이런 식으로 저희가 카메라와 속도 측정기를 결합해서 저희가 지금 사용하고 있습니다.
As well, a device with pressure tracking sensors is widely used in fencing training to measure reaction rate.
펜싱 선수들에게 가장 중요한 순발력을 측정하는 장비인데요. 이제 보고자 하는 원하는 위치에 LED가 들어오고 이제 칼끝이 닿는 순간, 즉 반응 시간을 보는 장비입니다. 이 장비를 통해서 이제 선수 개개인의 단점을 보완하고 또 경기력 향상에 도움을 주고 있습니다.
This is one of the parks in Yongin-si, Gyeonggi-do. When a jogger carrying a RFID, radio frequency identification tag, runs along the trail in the park, RFID embedded readers that are implanted under the trail track record his or her exercise course. Sensors installed in fitness equipment also monitor and check daily workout in real time. Motion tracking sensors are also applied in a park utilizing ubiquitous infrastructures, and such a park has become popular among people.
자기 몸을 알고 근육을 거기에 어떻게 맞춰서 키워야 되는지 또 어떻게 또 체력을 관리해야 되는지도 알 수 있어서 좋은 것 같고요.
별도의 디바이스와 추가적인 입력 없이 자동으로 모든 운동량이 시스템에 전송이 되고 이를 통해 사용자는 언제 어디서나 자신의 건강 상태를 확인할 수 있는 기술로 발전될 것으로 예상합니다.
Eye tracking technology is not new at all in sci-fi movies. An automatic page scrolling function in the smartphone helps a user to scroll pages without touching it by detecting the user's eye movement through the camera mounted on the front. Eye tracking technology is also used in applied sports science. Badminton players in the court wear a special gear, and a tiny camera is attached to the front of each gear. But what could it be used for? This is an eye tracking device used to collect data from the player's eye movement.
그 시선 추적 장치는 두 대의 카메라를 쓰는데 한 대의 카메라는 이제 눈을 찍고요. 나머지 한 대 카메라는 그 착용자의 시선 뷰를 찍습니다. 그래서 눈동자의 위치하고 그다음 보는 뷰의 방향을 계산을 해서 실제 이 사람이 어디를 보고 있는지 저희가 컴퓨터로 추적을 하게 됩니다.
The eye tracking device has been used in the badminton training because a badminton player's vision is important in determining performance during a badminton competition that players deal with very fast shuttlecock speeds.
예를 들어서 B라는 선수가 자기가 이제 시선 처리에 좀 문제가 있는 것 같다 그러면 그럼 비교 데이터를 보여주면서 본인은 패턴이 이런 식으로 나타나니까 조금 다른 방식으로 한번 해보는 게 어떻겠느냐 그런 정도로만 저희가 알려주고 있습니다.
Researchers in the Pierre and Marie Curie University in Paris, France, developed technology enabling writing through eye scrolling. A camera installed in a head-mounted display transmits visual images of characters, numbers and pictures that a user looks at to a computer by tracking his or her eye movement.
만약 이 시선 추적 장치가 구글 글라스 안에 들어가게 되면 좀 더 세밀하게 정보를 가질 수 있게 되겠죠. 위치 기반 정보에서 더 정확하게 내가 어떤 물체를 보면 그 물체에 대한 아주 세세한 정보를 따로따로 이제 편하게 뽑아올 수 있는 기능을 이런 장치들이 좀 더 발전하면 아마 그런 기능들을 구현할 수 있을 거로 기대합니다.
Furthermore, technologies to be incorporated in training optimized for athletes' physical conditions have continued to develop in preparations for the Olympics. Accordingly, humans would be able to boost physical conditions significantly, along with the advance in training programs using statistical databases of physical functions. Information and communication technology that has made our everyday life already convenient in modern society has also made another big step forward in contributing to enhancing performance of professional athletes and health management of the general public. Helped by the continuing advance in information technology, humans may be able to overcome physical limits, and it looks likely to happen in the near future.
Once upon a time, intercoms were simply a method of communicating with whoever was knocking on your front door. No longer. The latest intercom converges telecommunications technologies, security functions, even smart content. Standing at the center of this evolution in intercoms is a small South Korean company. Let's meet this week's hidden champion.
Progress in information and communication is the main drive behind progress in home lifestyle around the world. A home has evolved from a comfort zone that takes care of the basic necessities of life to a place filled with the latest technology and multimedia. The smart home system industry is being led by a Korean company which aims to bring smart life into homes worldwide. CEOs from 14 countries, including Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and India, gathered at one business exhibition recently. Business leaders from around the world visited the Commax headquarters, a company that has gained global recognition with its home network system. Visitors were amazed at the latest in smart home system when they were given the opportunity to check out the company products themselves.
Great product, great value for money, and Commax are ahead of the curve in terms of product development.
I'm very happy to be here. I've been several times to Commax, but this time I think with the new gallery, it is fantastic.
What looks like an ordinary home is where Mr. Kim Kwang-gi lives and where he works as well. He begins and ends his day with the smart home system. The Commax product adds convenience around the household with many functions like the door phone, multimedia, security, lighting, and gas control.
움직임 감지 센서를 통해 자동으로 조명을 켜거나 끌 수가 있으며 블라인드 또한 올리거나 내릴 수가 있습니다. 이를 통해서 많은 편리함을 느낀 것 같고요. 추가적으로 스마트 터치 패드를 이용하여 실시간 전력 모니터링이 가능하여 전기세를 아낄 수 있는 효과가 있을 것 같습니다.
Commax is a company that specializes in products for smart homes, which has also led the paradigm in the communication equipment market. The company was the first to commercialize door phones fit for traditional Korean homes. It created the video phone in the 80s and home automation products in the 90s, paving the way for home communication devices. Starting from the year 2000, Commax incorporated internet technology into its home network products. In their latest product, it has applied the Android OS to the mobile home network product called Home Mobile, which is leading the market trend.
인간이 제일 추구하는 건 행복 아니겠습니까? 가정의 행복이죠. 가정의 행복해지려면 편리하고 즐거워야 되겠죠. 우리 홈 네트워크 시스템이 그런 거를 제공하고 있다고 봅니다. 안전, 편리함, 그걸 통해서 이제 행복을 추구하는 그런 기기라고 우리는 생각을 하고 거기에 맞춰서 모든 제품 개발을 하고 있습니다.
Commax products have come a long way from the simplest door phones that verify visitors who come to our doorstep to the latest in home network service that contains security, multimedia, and information-related functions all in one small wall-hanging device. Commax is opening doors for a new market with new products which has improved our lives. Commax has also succeeded in expanding its market share by developing the smart home system from the one-dimensional device. The green smart home solution has the ability to monitor energy usage. Company officials say the product can reduce energy loss thanks to the EMS system, which monitors and limits energy usage.
EMS 시스템은 에너지 매니지먼트 시스템의 약칭입니다. 가정 내에서 사용하고 있는 전기, 온수, 가스 등을 효율적으로 관리하기 위해서 만들어진 시스템이고요. 먼저 전등에 대한 관리를 보게 되면 에너지를 사용하게 됐을 경우에 이제 일정 시점으로 전기량이 많이 나간다. 그렇게 되면 자동으로 제어를 해주게 됩니다. 가스 같은 경우도 일정 시점 가스가 오버하게 되면 이렇게 자동으로 닫히게끔 하는 것들을 나타내주는 게 EMS 시스템입니다.
Commax, through its products, aims to provide convenience while improving people's health and their living environment. Commax has increased its role by expanding the platform through various service contents in its hardware equipments.
그 환경에 따라서 알아서 제어해주고 운영될 수 있도록 예를 들면 가스를 잠근다든지 전등을 킨다든지 블라인드가 내려진다든지 이러한 환경들을 우리 코맥스 제품들이 알아서 인식해서 센서와 연동해서 해주는 것들로 인해서 고객들이 가장 크게 편리하게 사용할 수 있는 것이 가장 큰 장점입니다.
Commax products have made its name at home and abroad, boasting a good market reputation. The company's overseas market expansion started back in 1973. Now, Commax is known around 120 countries, building a global standard. Commax has grown into a leading global brand with its products that have evolved from sound to video technology, analog to digital, and from cable to wireless, reflecting changes in the company's life paradigm.
가정의 홈 네트워크와 모바일 기계, 무선 통신 기기하고 연결이 되고 그래서 언제 어디서든지 가정의 밖에서도 가정을 컨트롤하고 또 가정 내부에 여러 가지 일어나는 정보를 밖에서도 자기 손 안에서 볼 수 있는 그런 시스템으로 발전하기 때문에 대단히 중요한 산업으로 성장하리라고 봅니다.
The amount of technological advancement that has happened in the past year is incomparable to the changes that have happened in the past decade. Experts say progress in information and communication is not to be chased, but to be led. We look forward to the Korean smart companies that will lead the smart lifestyle for the future.
A key slogan current in North Korea today is strong and prosperous nation. Having carried out a successful satellite launch and 3 atomic tests, North Korea can claim to be a strong nation. But what of prosperity? Having achieved deterrence, North Korea is now turning its attention to its stuttering economy. But in today's interconnected global world, can a nuclear-armed rogue state seriously expect to raise its economic profile and enrich its people? These are the questions we attempt to answer in our North Korean segment.
During a plenary session of the party's Central Committee on March 31st, North Korea adopted a new strategic policy known as the Pyeongjin Line. The Pyeongjin policy, which Kim Jong-un called a lawful prerequisite for revolutionary development, is characterized as parallel or simultaneous development of nuclear weapons and the economy on the basis of self-reliance.
북한이 이제 핵실험에 자신감을 가졌고 핵무기 보유 시대가 왔고 경제를 살리지 않으면 체제가 망한다는 걸 북한 통치 집단이 알아차렸구나.
Kim Jong-un's new strategy resembles that of his grandfather Kim Il-sung's back in the 1960s, during the time of the Sino-Soviet conflict and Cuban Missile Crisis. The North Korean state media noted that the new policy was a brilliant succession and development onto a new, higher stage of the original line of simultaneously developing the economy and national defense that was set forth and had been fully embodied by the great Generalissimos.
김일성 초기에는 성공을 거뒀다고 우리가 객관적으로 판단할 수 있죠. 왜냐하면 70년대 초까지는 아시다시피 북한의 어떤 국방부문 또 그 일상 그 경제 부문에서 오히려 남한에 앞섰던 게 사실이기 때문에 70년 초까지
한마디로 김일성 시대 병진 노선은 밥 먹던 사회주의 시대 병진 노선이라면 오늘날 이 김정은의 병진 노선은 박굶는 사회주의 시대 병진 노선인데 핵무력 건설이라고 하는 엄청난 자금이 들어가는 것을 하다가 자칫 지금 그 고갈된 사회주의가 폭삭 주저앉을 수도 있는 이런 그 모험이다.
Although the word Pyeongjin means move two things forward simultaneously, Kim Il-sung's Pyeongjin policy leaned very heavily toward building national defense by prioritizing the allocation of limited resources to the defense sector at the relative expense of economic development. And experts predict the grandson's policy is likely to show similar traits.
핵 포기하지 않겠다는 굉장히 그 국제적인 확고한 선언이고
핵 무력 건설 우선 노선이라고 현실적으로 그렇게 될 가능성이 많을 거라고 봅니다.
The plenary meeting outlined 12 tasks to carry out the Pyeongjin line, which include expanding nuclear forces both in quality and quantity, solving energy problems with nuclear and light water reactor projects, launching various satellites, focusing on and promoting the agricultural, light, and heavy industries. The new policy, in fact, seems to have a substantial rhetorical emphasis on developing the wider economy. And as if to prove its intention, Pyongyang appointed Park Pong-ju as a new premier at the meeting.
당의 지위까지 함께 준 상태에서 총리를 했다는 것은 의미가 크고 그리고 직후에 다른 관료들도 좀 교체를 시켜주었죠. 아마 박봉주 사람일 것으로 이제 추정이 됩니다만은 그거 자체는 오늘날 북한이 가지고 있는 고민들을 단적으로 드러내는 부분들이죠.
박봉주가 2002년, 3년, 4년에 개혁이 왕성할 때 총리를 했기 때문입니다. 경제의 기조라고 하는 거가 계획을 강조하고 있습니다. 계획을 강조하고 있기 때문에 박봉주가 들어서면은 아마도 계획 경제를 운영하는 데서 유연성은 발휘할 수 있지만은 지금의 여러 가지 상황을 보면은 박봉주가 받은 그 임무가 계획을 열심히 추진하라는 아닌 것 같습니다.
Park is seen as a major reformer as he presided over the implementation of various modifications to the country's economic policies as prime minister from 2003 to 2007.
어느 정도 그 경제와 또 핵무력 건설을 균형 있게 끌고 가겠다는 건데 문제는 과연 박봉주라는 개인적인 능력 있는 사람, 의지를 가진 사람이 돌아왔다고 해서 이미 다 드러누워버린 북한 경제를 일으켜 세울 수 있느냐? 여기에 이제 문제가 있는 것이죠.
A dilemma in which North has no choice but to carry out both conservative and reformative policies, as well as to develop both the economy and the nuclear weapons program. The core idea of the new Pyeongjin line is to make the communist country a nuclear power state for self-defense, so as to reduce spending on conventional weapons and shift resources to improving people's lives and economic construction.
설령 핵을 개발했다 하더라도 그런 자원들이 경제 부문으로 전환될 수 있도록 또 허용할 것이냐. 국방이라는 거는 항상 어떤 전쟁이라든가 유사시를 상정하고 준비하면서 들어가는 그 자원들이기 때문에 어떤 수준에 이르렀다고 해서 축소하기가 상당히 어렵죠.
군부 강경파가 아직 그 북한의 권력 구조 내에서 그 힘을 가지고 있기 때문에 김정은이 말은 병진 노선이라고 하지만은 군부에 휘둘리면서 가다가 북한 체제가 어떻게 될지.
The conditions are completely different now, and everyone thinks the policy is bound to fail. When will North Korea learn its lessons and stop contradicting itself, and finally move forward?
That's all we have time for this week. If you enjoyed the show, please let us know. If you didn't enjoy the show, please let us know and let us know why. You can find us on the Arirang TV homepage or visit us on the Bizline Facebook page. Thanks for joining us. We enjoyed your company. Hope to see you next week. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. Goodbye.